4, 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to Racing World, brought to you by Perspective Group. It's your motorsport podcast show in conjunction with Race Control Magazine.
Well, welcome to another edition of Racing World. Not going to really muck around here, going to get straight into it. I've got Bob on the line and we're going to talk Dutch F1 Grand Prix amongst other things. So let's really kick the show off right now, and here we go. Well, here we go. I've got my mate Bob back again. Another week, another Grand Prix. I tell you what, there's another one next week as well, and IndyCar. But here we go, Bob. Dutch Grand Prix first. I guess so much news out of that. Boy, I love that place. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. It's when we come from Spa to Monza, it's three old school circuits without the name of Herman Tilke being mentioned, but the one in the middle, Zandvoort, that we've just seen, is an old school new circuit, effectively, because it's not the old school, the old circuit. But yeah, what a really good occasion. I because of lockdown, you know, I stayed up to watch a Grand Prix, Spa Grand Prix.
You watched it truly live.
We stayed up. It's in the last couple of years, I've got in the habit of watching it very early in the morning or something like that. I stayed up to see it, and I thought, oh, that was really great, because I stayed up and nothing happened. I did it again this time, and luckily this time, there it was, a fantastic Grand Prix to stay up to, really. But I'm not sure, I was thinking about this afterwards, I'm not sure if I enjoyed it or not. I'm not sure if it was exciting or not. I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was. I watched lots of parts of it and different things from free practice via Formula One's website and qualifying and everything. I think those corners made it because they were visually quite spectacular. So that caught your attention, and phenomenal corners as well. And then to see, because I also watched the F3 race, to see cars go 2-3 wide round there, that was pretty impressive. Very narrow track, unlike, tracks that you've just mentioned. But I think that gave it dynamic. And then the other part of it, I guess, that played into the hand of it was the fact that you had 70,000 screaming Dutch people there. Yeah,
and it was a nice day, and there was no rain, and all that sort of thing came into it. But you say a narrow track, it was always a narrow track. I mean, regardless, always in those days. And I always felt that they're emasculating the track and doing all sorts of things, and they're going to make it shorter. It looked a lot shorter than the old tracks, but it was almost 4.2 kilometres. It was around 4.2 kilometres. The old tracks were 4.2 kilometres. So that great big track that went all the way back in the dunes was still 4.2 kilometres back in the day. The lap times then were 1 minute 17, 18, 19. But that's a reflection on the cars, not the length of the track. So it wasn't so different from the old days. But nonetheless, it was the corners, I agree, those bank corners, they really made it. I mean, they were fantastic. I don't know if it did much for the racing. I think it probably did. But visually, it was wonderful. Turn 3 after Tarzan and then turn 2. Just amazing. I mean, I remember Tarzan from years ago, and that was a fantastic track. And they were talking about it, I think, about 40 years ago when we were there, that they were thinking about banking that because too many people were going straight on. So somebody came up with the idea of bank Tarzan. Now, that would have been wonderful. Slingshot bank Tarzan in through 2 and then slingshot bank the next turn. But anyway, it didn't happen. I think it was a fascinating Grand Prix. It was a fascinating race. They said there wasn't going to be a lot of overtaking. We'll tell Sergio Perez that because he managed to do quite a lot of it. There was a fair amount of overtaking generally. It was 72 laps of intrigue as much as anything else, because obviously the intrigue was on whether Max Verstappen was going to, or how fast Max Verstappen was going to be and how far he was going to win it by, because there was really not a question leading up to the race that he was going to win it. And he did win it. Lewis Hamilton put up a great fight, but clearly Verstappen had the whole thing in hand all the way through. So, yep, it was good. There were, a few incidents, a few occasions in there when I had a chance to cheer. One of the things I would have cheered but did not see it because they did not show it was Fernando Alonso overtaking Carlos Sainz in the very last couple of 100 metres or something like that after almost crashing in the last turn. So Unfortunately, we didn't see it. You've got to go on YouTube or something like that to see that. But it's good to see that. I was going to say life in the old dog. That's not what I mean at all. It's just good to see that Fernando Alonso was twice in that race. He used his smarts. His teammate, Ocon, was behind him saying, basically, can you tell Fernando to move along a little bit because I'm faster than him? Now, you might remember Fernando Alonso saying that in Hockenheim some years ago when Massa was in front of him. And they got the message to Massa, Felipe, Fernando is behind you and he is faster than you. Okay. But then I think Fernando got the idea that, okay, I'm not having some whippersnapper tell me what to do. I'm saving my tyres. I know how to race. This is cunning coming in here. And he immediately got 6 seconds away. That gave me a lot of pleasure in the whole race, just to see Alonso's performance. But yeah, nonetheless, I thought it was a spectacle. Yeah. It was a technical battle. Yeah.
Yep.
It was a great track. It's going to be a great track. I don't know how many Dutch are going to get there if Verstappen ever retires, but still. But was it exciting over 72 laps? I think so.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think if we take the takeaway things out of the weekend, first of all, Alpine, another strong performance by both cars, which clearly we're starting to see them in the top 10 on a regular basis. A little bit of confusion at McLaren again. An interesting thing, and I'm not pointing finger necessarily, but Alonso's influence must be coming into play at Alpine because you've seen quite a resurgence in them as opposed to when Danny Ricciardo was there. I think there's progress there and good on them. That's reward for effort, isn't it? So they were my kind of big things, and then probably disappointment would go to the Williams side after what we'd seen at Spa. Didn't transfer into what we saw at the Dutch Grand Prix, but that's cycler, and we'll see a different scenario probably at Monza as well. So,
good performances. I mean, Gasly was fantastic.
Yes, yeah. Tsunoda strong.
The other end of his scale, Tsunoda. Yeah, no, he didn't do anything again, did he? The Ferraris ran well unexpectedly. I think McLaren were on the back foot a little bit simply because of the disjointed qualifying, and Lando Norris was not able to get a time to put him in Q1 effectively, so that put him back in the field. And once you're back there on a track like that, it's not much you're going to do. Tactics brought him up into a point, and Ricciardo did not get a point because Lando did. Yeah. So that's a bit of a shame. So anyway, it tightens the whole thing up now. I mean, the championship with Max Verstappen ahead, 224.5 points. We'll never forget the half point. To Lewis Hamilton's 221.5, and then Bottas 123. And of course, going on to Bottas today, I read when it was announced, I guess last night, overnight in Europe, Bottas has now been, gosh, shock horror, he is going to Alfa Romeo, and the Williams driver, George Russell. I wonder if he's going to Mercedes, because
they haven't announced that. It went through my mind before, and I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if they came out with another name and threw the whole media everywhere, and we, so-and-so's going to drive for Mercedes next year.
Yeah, that would be good, wouldn't it? But anyway, it looks like he's George Russell is going to be at Mercedes and announced very soon. But that throws up then Williams. Who's going to replace him at Williams, because Alexander Albon wants to be in there. Red Bull want him to be in there. Of course they do, because it's a Mercedes team. And Mercedes is saying, you can be in that too. We don't mind you being there, but not as a Red Bull driver. You've got to give that away first. There's politics there. Mick Schumacher is also in the conversation to be either at Williams, which I very, very much doubt, or at, but the same problem will happen, of course, because he's Ferrari associated, or at Alfa Romeo, and that puts Giovinazzi on the back foot as well. So yeah, there's a lot of shenanigans to go on yet, I think, generally.
Talking of Bottas, the fastest lap thing near the end of the race, and I like some of the radio traffic where Valtteri came out and said, "Yes, I know, I'm just playing with it."
But he did get it.
You can't deny the guy. What do you do? You know that by that stage he obviously knew he was getting the flick. But in the statement, of course, which is always political, he's doing his best to help Mercedes out to the end of the season because we know the value of the Constructors' Championship. I'm sure Mercedes will reward him sufficiently should they win the Constructors' Championship.
I think so. But I think it probably also forced Hamilton to come in and put new tyres on to make sure he got the fastest lap, because Valtteri, although Valtteri, he said that it backed off at the end of that lap, I think perhaps he might not have backed off quite enough to do that. So it kind of forced their hand for Hamilton to get the fastest lap. But that's the way the game is played. That's the politics that are on there. That's the way that, everybody does things. So, bringing into politics as well, Nick de Vries, who's a Mercedes driver, they want him to try and get in Formula One somehow. That's the Williams seat as well. So, I don't know. I don't know who's going to.
He was visibly seen on a lot of the F1 broadcasts over the weekend as well. Obviously, the Dutch thing as well. But there's another layer that's just starting to emerge as well. But with Valtteri in an Alpha and all new cars for 2022, maybe it's not too bad. He'll bring a lot to the team, that's for sure. And as people like Nico Rosberg would say, it's life without Lewis, isn't it? So.
I hope he does do well. I really do, because
too.
Lewis is shadow for an awful long time. But conversely, when somebody comes in, somebody has to go out. It's a shame to see Kimi Raikkonen depart. Not only because he's a very good driver anyway, and he's getting on a little bit, but they need somebody like Kimi Raikkonen in Formula One just for his character, just for the odd things he does, just for the absolute. The character that he brings and is and he says and all that sort of stuff. So it is a shame to see him go. It really is.
And sad news that he was, tested positive for COVID and Kubica drove over the weekend. I would assume then that means he probably doesn't drive at Monza as well. They're
saying he's got another test or whatever, and it is only a week away. But I would imagine the protocols would be difficult. I mean, it's amazing seeing the entire paddock masked up. I've noticed some of the masks are slipping below the nose now and over the mouth. And then you just go, 20 yards away or 20 metres away to the other side of the track, and there's the entire Dutch population with never a mask to be seen.
Yeah, so much for social distancing. So
imagine them all blowing COVID all at once, the Delta variants at once. It would cover the paddock in a mist of Delta. You just imagine it, can't you?
But overall, I think we give the Dutch Grand Prix a tick, and on to Monza. So fastest race of the season coming up next. Always remember our days at TVNZ when we used to do that show together with Monza. You were kind of on air and then you were off air. But, it's gone in the back of an eye. A lot of pressure on Ferrari to always perform at home, but the championship's well and truly alive and may not go its complete distance. So right now it's about making sure you stay in front really as well.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there are battles going to be going on. Obviously, there's the big battle between the top two teams, and then there's the battle between third, fourth, and fifth, effectively, which is now Ferrari, McLaren, and you've got to say that it's quite possible that others will come in there and jump in that. I mean, there's who else would you say?
Alpine, right?
Alpine could come in there as well, but obviously the battle is, there's two separate battles: first and second, and third, fourth, fifth. The others. Second, fourth is the one that is the tightest one because McLaren and Ferrari are jumping over each other all the time. And then there's the drivers' battle as well, because Perez is gradually creeping closer to the top of that little pile. Bottas now has gone ahead of Norris. So there's still battles to be fought. And there's still quite a lot of the season to go. I mean, we're not done and dusted yet at all. And incidentally, the Alonso car, the Alpines are really quite quick in a straight line these days. And it's a lot of straight line at Monza, as we know.
Yeah, so that's good. Moving on now, we've got this massive list in front of us for the show today. So moving on, Kiwis, we might as well start with Liam Lawson. Another fine performance in DTM.
Yeah, indeed. There were 56 points available to win at the weekend at the Red Bull Ring, the Österreich Ring in Austria. Liam Lawson won 55 of them. He got 55 out of 56. The only one he didn't get was for getting pole position for one of the races. But he got pole position and 2 wins and qualified second. So I mean, what more could you ask a driver at the Red Bull ring with the boss of Red Bull? He lives just, let's see, how far away is it? He lives, I don't know, about maybe 120 k's away, and I'm sure he was there at the weekend. Good on Liam for doing that. He drove superbly well. I saw some of it on YouTube and some of the online stuff. So yeah, Liam's superb. He's leapt up now to what I say, second in the championship. I think he's 10 or 12 points behind. That's all in the championship, which is actually might be less than that. I'm not sure now.
So
good on him.
I'll pose a question here with Liam, because he's a single-seater driver, as we well know.
Yeah.
Does DTM do him any harm, or does it do him good in the long run? It's certainly put him on the radar well and truly, hasn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't do him any harm at all, because he's driving, because the Formula 2 season is so disjointed. I mean, what would he be doing in between?
Yeah, I agree.
You can't just sit in a simulator all the time. It doesn't do you any good. And Liam has only driven, I mean, GT cars, has only driven it from the beginning of this year when he was driving at Hampton Downs. So, yeah, I think it keeps him front and centre in the conversation with Red Bull. And while there's another Red Bull driver there that's favoured, obviously Albon, because they're trying to get him into Formula One, and he's beating Albon, can't be good, can't be bad, can it?
No,
can't be anything but good for him.
And that also applies a bit of pressure to people like Tsunoda then at AlphaTauri, because obviously that's an entryway into the big team as well. So,
it is.
Liam on the radar.
Yeah, it is. Tsunoda's got a fairly hefty chunk behind him in Honda. They're quite keen to get a Japanese driver in there, and Pierre Gasly, you're not going to get him out of there unless they want to move him, because there's nowhere else for him to go, and Red Bull Avenue is closed, so he's got to try and find something else to do. It's not going to happen this year anyway. So that's all good. Another guy we've got to look at, a bit of news for Brendon Letch as well, who's now driving the GT3 Huracan Evo Lamborghini something or other in the championship in Europe. What's the championship called? I wrote it down.
I was just going to say he's driving a Lamborghini. It was a lot easier, but there you go.
But I've read that 2 or 3 times. I've got it written down here. He's in the 2022 GT World Challenge Europe Endurance Series. There, I couldn't remember all that all at once. Anyway, good on Brendon. He's got a full-time gig over there. I'm not sure how many events it is, probably 6 or 7 events, that's all. But good on Brendon. He's, he's got a career out of it as well.
Yeah. We'll keep on going. So other Kiwis, a bit of news around Billy Fraser, the fact that he may drive in Pro Indy next year and step up from USF 2000. That's a big move. And Hunter McElroy, who was on the show just recently, would testify to the fact that it is a big step. Sure, it's part of the ladder system. Fantastic if that's the direction that Billy's going, and then we wish him all the best. Not so many cars in Pro Indy as there is in USF, but the competition's a lot tougher. So, the advantage I guess he'll have going into season 2022 will be the fact that he's at least seen these circuits once. So, but he's still got a round to go at Mid-Ohio in about a month, along with Hunter McElroy, and McElroy third in the championship at the moment, and can win the championship at Mid-Ohio. So we're wishing those guys all the best.
They're all grafting over there. I mean, we were talking about Jacob Douglas last week. He's in the team with Ryan Yardley, and that team is Kiwi Racing.
Kiwi Motorsport.
Kiwi Motorsport. They're very supportive of Kiwis over there, and both those drivers, Ryan Yardley, an ex-TR86 champion here in New Zealand, and Jacob Douglas, who's just starting his career, they were both on the podium at that weekend. So there's a lot of Kiwis, scratching their way up the various ladders in the USA, and good on them. Good, it's great racing. At least you might be able to make a profit over there, or at least get paid for your driving more so than you would be in Europe at the moment, anyway. Yeah,
and then speaking of moving your way up the ladder, then there's this guy called Dixon who starts the run of 3 weekends this weekend. So we go Portland, Laguna, and then Long Beach. They have said about Long Beach, it will go ahead. There'll be vaccine restrictions and all sorts of other bits and pieces, but it's 3 in a row, 3 weekends in a row on the West Coast, so a true West Coast swing for most teams.
It is.
The big thing, Pato O'Ward and Newgarden have come out saying they want every point that's available on the table. So they're looking for, the pole position point. They're looking for laps led point. They believe that that's where the championship will be decided. So those two have kind of declared that now.
Yeah, but every driver would be saying that as well, wouldn't they? But there are over the 3 races, if you add them all up, there's 162 points to be won. If you win every single thing, like laps led, all that sort of stuff, 162 points maximum. And when you think there's only, what is it? I wrote that down here somewhere. There's only like 40 points, more or less. I mean, it's not quite that, between the top 4.
Yeah, you know? And Ericsson's the dark horse in there as well, because, you know, depending on what happens, he, as we said in a show a few weeks back, you know, he's been one of the most consistent performers since Indianapolis. So, you know, there's the 5 of them that really, they're the 5 to look at, which becomes 4. And, you know, we hope after the weekend it still becomes 3, but it includes Dixon. Yeah,
well, leading into Portland, you can only go back 2 races effectively, because there were no races in 17 or whatever. Over the last 2 races, Takuma Sato won one, Will Power won the other, and they're the only ones basically that won those races. Neither of which are in the championship effectively. But Scott Dixon was, what was he, 3rd and 16th or something?
Yes.
No, lower than that. He was a 5th and 16th in those 2 races. So he hasn't got a particularly good record there.
No.
Nor of the guys around him either. So, you know,
if you look at Dixon on these last 3 circuits, actually his track record on all 3 of them are probably his worst 3 tracks across the calendar. But, you know, it's the same for everyone. You know, Pato Award in the mix. The difference for Pato and Alex Palau, as we've said previously, they've never been in this championship position before, and the pressure that comes with it, whereas Newgarden and Dixon have, and a little bit more experience when it comes to those type of scenarios. I don't believe that will phase either of those 2 either, because they're bold enough drivers in their own right now that they can cope with that. So, you know, it'd be interesting. Seeing as we were talking about New Zealand things, Callum Ilott, that was seen here in TRS in the New Zealand Grand Prix a few years ago, will drive for Junkos Hullinger Racing this weekend, not for the other 2 necessarily, because Junkos have said that they want to try drivers out across the 3 events. They haven't confirmed whether there's other drivers yet, but we know that he'll line up this weekend. So that's quite a move for him coming from Europe. You know, he was there as a reserve driver as well, but you know, indications are is that he wants in on IndyCar. So he's the first one to give it a go.
But that's probably a good, going back to what we were talking about, Liam Lawson, that's another good indication, but there's no Formula 2 racing happening for a while.
Yes.
So, you know, they're being forced to do other things, which is in Callum's case, he's going to the USA. Incidentally, talking about Callum Ilott, an ex-Toyota Racing Series driver down here with, actually, when you go through Formula 3, Formula 2 and Formula 1.
Quite a few now.
And in the USA. It was announced this week from Toyota that there's only going to be the Grand Prix this year because the MBIE here in New Zealand, who are in charge of quarantine and allowing people into the country, have decided that they will not give any sanction to any foreign drivers coming into New Zealand. Like, you know, apparently you've got to be a sportsman, like a rugby player or something like that, or a basketball, or indeed you can go cycling at Rotorua, and you can come into the country for a sporting event, and you can have all these MBIE rooms for quarantine. I don't know how they make the decision, but the effective decision means that there will be no Toyota Racing Series around the country this year, this coming season again. But there will be a Grand Prix again, but only a Grand Prix. Last year we ran a Grand Prix and a small series. But this time it's only going to be a Grand Prix. But as long as everything is open, it's going to be a hell of a Grand Prix, because I think Toyota are putting an awful lot of effort into it. There will, of course, be a TR Toyota Racing 86 series, which is, I read at the moment, is almost oversubscribed. 22 cars in there at the moment, which is going to be a fantastic series. South Island, North Island as well. That'll be good.
Well, the interesting thing with that is that in many ways, even though we're still where we both live in level 4 lockdown in New Zealand, so for people who don't know that is called lockdown, the big one. And the rest of the country starting to ease its way out of that. But the the domestic motorsport scene in many ways looks quite healthy. You've got 86 that is in a very strong position with a good car count. And then Jeff Short from Speedworks Promotions announced last week the arrival of the Super GT class. And within the space of 24 hours, all 30 franchises for licenses for this season were fully sold. So there's 30 cars lined up for that. And that's a mixture of GT4 spec cars, Porsche and Ferrari. So, you know, that's a decent sized field to sort of sell out in the space of 24 odd hours.
Indeed. I mean, just having those two classes racing at the same place is going to make a hell of a,
superb, you know?
A hell of a race. You know, it's unfortunate that our future in New Zealand seems to be, in many ways, tin top as opposed to open wheeler. But we've still got various open wheeler series, obviously like Ford and First and all that sort of thing. So there's still a lot of motor racing to be seen around the country this coming season, as long as we're able to do it. Simple as that, really.
Formula Ford, I think, is looking quite strong at the moment. There's been a bit of a mending of the ways between the North Island, South Island scenarios that were taking place. So, and it's still a very good development class. And that's what leads people to the Toyota Racing Series long term as well. So we need those things. So, I think that for a summer, should we be out of the current COVID conditions we're in New Zealand right now, then that'll be good. For viewers who are watching this on YouTube that live in the States, because I know there's quite a lot of you that tune into this, we certainly thrive on a probably 6-month season down here, which is our summer months rather than a calendar year. So it's very important that, you know, we are able to continue the sport over those summer months. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be great.
Oh yeah, I am. As long as I can go to them, as long as I'm allowed out, you know, I can find the key to the bars on the windows. As long as I'm allowed to go by our government, I'll just leave it at that. Then yeah, I'll be there, obviously, at all of them, and it's going to be. I'm looking forward to it, certainly, but I get quite inwardly angry at the arbitrary choice of sports and sportsmen and women that are allowed back in here and all that sort of thing, but it's a bigger issue as well because families are disrupted. I can't go to my mother's funeral, for instance, because she died recently, and I can't go simply because of the restrictions around travel and all sorts of things.
Yeah,
I can understand it, and I'll live with it, but it, you know, this got to end sometime. It's got to end sometime. We can't be talking about this in 2 years' time, 5 years' time, whatever.
Oh no, I've got to get back down to doing these shows in the garage with you because I miss out on the coffee when I'm not down there. It's one thing doing it electronically, but it's not quite the same.
No, we have got delicious coffee here, I've got to say.
Yeah, I'm sure. Just before we go, just one thing, because we've been sort of harping on about COVID things. Australia, obviously, in a bad way, which impacts on Bathurst. They're still saying that they want to get a Bathurst 1000 race away, maybe even as late as December. When you see the case numbers rise in Australia all the time, honestly, I don't know how they're going to do it. I really don't.
No, I think they can. Don't forget, last year they did Bathurst, but it was very restricted on the crowd. There was hardly anybody there. So I think they can. I think they will do it simply because the will of doing it will overcome the giving up of it. But it does illustrate just how difficult it is to plan events because all of a sudden, you know, they're saying we're going to race here, there, and everywhere, and then there's an outbreak, and then they can't, all that sort of stuff. I think they will make every effort to do Bathurst, and I think the local government will agree to it because it's an international iconic race.
Yes.
Yeah, certainly they're in trouble. I don't even know when their next race is. October.
No, they've kind of just put everything on hold, really. And I was talking to a number of promoters recently involved in Speedway in New Zealand, so dirt track Speedway, and you know, very hard to plan a calendar. A lot of speedways traditionally open Labour weekend in New Zealand, which is not that far away now, and they're all saying that they don't know if they can or they can't. So, you know, it still has its impacts, and we're, you know, nearly 2 years into this thing, and it's not going away in a hurry. But you know, we were treated to a true spectacle at the Dutch Grand Prix, and we're very lucky to being able to see that and other forms of motorsport such as IndyCar over the next 3 weekends. So I'm sure we're in for plenty of television viewing.
Yeah, nice overs in for a lot of bum time as well, what with IndyCar and NASCAR that's had its first race of the playoffs, and Denny Hamlin won his first race of the year and it happened to be in the playoffs. Anyway, yeah, we've got NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, Formula 3 over the weekend. Is Formula 3 there? I can't remember now. I don't know who the hell's there or not. But yeah, there's a lot going on this coming weekend.
So before I let you go, because we're starting to run out of time here, pick a winner for Monza for me.
Ooh, Hamilton.
Hamilton?
I think so. I think that thing will be quite quick. Yep.
I'm going to go, which I know probably won't happen. In fact, it's got a fat chance of happening, but I'd like to say Carlos Sainz in a Ferrari.
Yeah. Well, now you're saying I'd like to say. I would like to say somebody else. You asked me who I think is going to win. Hamilton. I think it will. I would like to see Lando Norris win. Simple as that.
Well, we'll end the debate before it gets out of control. Once again, Bob, thanks for talking to us. We'll talk again next week when we see who does win at Monza this weekend. Look forward to that chat and that debate. And until then, take very good care. We'll obviously talk about IndyCar as well. So we've got a massive show next weekend. Stay safe down where you're living. We'll stay safe in our little bubble up here. And we'll see you again soon.
Well, it'll be interesting to see whether Bob wins that little sweepstake or whether I do. I think he's probably got better odds than I have. But, you know, you never know. Ferrari at Monza, well, that'd be pretty amazing. And Carlos Sainz would be the man to do it. That's my bet anyway. Plenty of motorsport action coming, of course, this weekend with IndyCar, Monza F1. It's going to be a great weekend of sport. Kiwis racing around the world once again. So it's a tremendous thing for a little old country down in the South Pacific. We're not doing too bad. Once again, I want to thank you all for watching the show. Really do appreciate it. If you're not sharing or subscribing, now's your chance, because it's worthwhile and it makes a huge effort to us knowing that you're all out there enjoying the show. And don't forget, send us your ideas or suggestions in the feedback column, because we're certainly more than welcome to those. Good, bad or ugly, we'll read it and we'll take it as read as well. So thank you for all your comments. But until next week, stay very safe out there. Once again, stay very COVID aware. No matter where you are in the world, this thing is a nasty beast. We look forward to sharing a passion that we all enjoy, which is motorsport. So until next week, take care.